ESPN insiders may have revealed exactly who the Denver Broncos are going to be drafting in this year's upcoming draft, and I am so excited to deep dive into who the Denver Broncos could be potentially drafting and why it is a fantastic or awful idea. So ESPN did come out with one of these for every single team, basically an indicator of who they could potentially draft, and both two different things here are two different answers here, potentially the tight end position and the offensive lineman position, specifically citing that the Denver Broncos may look to add an offensive tackle in the second round with their first pick in the draft, because Garrett Bowles being 34 years old and then Mike McGlinchey being 31 years old, both of your tackles are aging, so they might want to get somebody for the future. But then another a site here from a different reporter saying that the tight end position is easily the way to go. Maybe not a starter caliber tight end, but somebody that is an athletic freak. Easily can see the Broncos going there as well. So tight end, offensive lineman seems to be the positions of need. So in this video, I'm going to break down who the Denver Broncos could potentially be selecting and whether or not is a good idea, a bad idea, or if there's a potential other option for the Broncos outside of this year's draft. But before we get too much into this video, I'd like to say that this video is brought to you by PrizePicks, the #1 sports picking app in America. Please, if you'd like, go to the link in the description, check out PrizePicks, sign up today using code Digest. It really helps this channel and making more videos. But continuing on with the video. So first of all, we know tight end is a position the Broncos are going to look at, and a guy that we can all think of for the tight end position, of course, Kenyon Sadiq, but he's not going to be available late in the second round. So these stats that I'm showing you right here are Eli Stowers, tight end out of Vanderbilt. Okay, had over 700 yards, receiving 4 touchdowns, and a guy that has previous quarterback experience. And I know we just love to get ourselves a joker guy, or at least Sean Payton would love to do that. Now, this is a new offense. It's Davis Webb's offense. He may not want a joker-esque player, but Sean Payton really could utilize a guy like that in the offense and help teach Davis Webb maybe even how to use a guy like that, because that's exactly how Taysom Hill was for the New Orleans Saints. And I would love to get a guy like Taysom Hill in his prime, like Eli Stowers, and develop him and grow him. I wouldn't say Stowers is necessarily a day one starter. He's going to be a starter in this league for years to come. So I'd love the Broncos to go get Eli Stowers at the tight end position. And I'm not just making this up. There have been multiple reports of different mock drafts that the Broncos have potential interest in, and Eli Stowers to the Broncos is one that's definitely heating up. And as you can see here, Torian York, linebacker out of Texas A&M, and offensive lineman Markel Bell out of Miami is another one, and I love the potential of adding Eli Stowers to the Denver Broncos. Definitely my top pick there in the second round. And then if we don't go with tight end in the second round, I think there's another player that we could potentially go get, and that's going to be Markel Bell. Now, he's projected to be a 4th round pick for the Denver Broncos, right? We have just been looking at this. You can just tell from this guy's sheer size, okay? Markel Bell, a 6'9", I believe, offensive lineman at 300 plus pounds. This guy is a huge wrecking ball, a guy that could be like a Trent Williams, a guy that could be a Trent Brown. Both of those guys are humongous guys that are super strong and both very good tackles. I feel like the Broncos should swing for the fences at Markel Bell. Now, a second round pick is pretty pricey for him, when I'd rather go with the tight end, running back, or linebacker at that high of a pick. But as soon as the 4th round comes around, we better be all in on Markel Bell, okay? Just from his sheer size, I want him, but don't take my word for it. The NFL has listed his strengths and weaknesses. I'm not going to read through every single one of these because we did that in our previous video. So if you want to watch a breakdown of that, make sure to go check it out. But some of his strengths and weaknesses are exactly what you'd expect. Some of his strengths are, he's a super strong guy. He's great with using his length to his advantage, and he made huge growth from 2024 to 2025, which means he could make huge growth from 2025 to 2026, which really encourages me there if we want to go there. But some of his weaknesses, as you can expect, is that he's a slower offensive lineman, so speedy edge rushers are kind of an issue for him. Tends to rely on his size, of course, so he can get hit with a quick move and somebody can get by him, and his timing is just a little bit off, and run defense or run blocking isn't as much of his thing as pass blocking is, which makes sense for an offensive lineman that is that big, because they're not as athletic. Offensive linemen tend to be better run blockers because they're a little bit faster. They can get downfield faster, but a tackle can be grown into that, molded into that, and be conditioned to be an offensive lineman that's better run blocking. But you can't teach 6'9", 300 pounds of pure muscle. Okay, well, he may not be pure muscle, but he's humongous, and I'd love the Broncos to go get him. I've fallen in love with that draft pick. I can't lie. I'd be disappointed if we didn't go there, but Can't forget, we do have Garrett Bowles and Mike McGlinchey. And Garrett Bowles, who has relatively been healthy in his entire career, played 17 games last season, was very good for the Denver Broncos last year. And Mike McGlinchey, also a very good tackle. So going with a tackle in the second round would be foolish in my opinion, because the offensive line is set. It was the best offensive line in football last year. There'd be no reason to differ from that or not go that way. But looking at these Denver Broncos draft picks, I think it's pretty clear that the focus on day 2, because we don't have a day 1 pick and we only have one day 2 pick, is going to be tight end in my opinion. Now I wouldn't be surprised if they just went best player available from the linebacking, tight end, or running back position. So whoever's highest on their board, they might just go with that. So a tight end maybe won't happen if more teams go there, but I really would love the Denver Broncos to go get them. And while I don't have the stats on this, okay, or stats on a player that I'd like to talk about, there are still other players that the Denver Broncos can go get, but in free agency, as we know, Evan Ingram was not the best tight end for the Broncos last season, and there's still a very notable great tight end out for right now, or out and available in free agency, and maybe he hasn't been signed because he has some injury history or current lingering injury that we don't know about, but David Njoku is still available, and the Denver Broncos could be all over that, as they still have about $22 million in cap space to spend. David Njoku at this point is probably demanding even less, so I wouldn't be surprised if he got like a 1 year, $6 million, $8 million deal. And the Broncos should be all over that. You can sign David Njoku, you could release Evan Ingram, and that saves you another $3 to $6 million. And then you draft a tight end to develop under David Njoku for one season, and then you have your tight end of the future. Or, I mean, you could theoretically just use Evan Ingram for one more year and then develop a tight end that way as well. But I think David Njoku would absolutely be worth bringing on to the Denver Broncos. I mean, why wouldn't you? Why would you not bring on David Njoku? And I mean, he didn't have the best stats last season. Njoku had a little bit of a down year with Harold Fanning Jr. being in there and the constant rotating quarterback play, which is to be expected when your quarterbacks are kind of terrible your whole year. But that's all right, because I think the Broncos could still utilize him and be good with him, and I just quickly was able to get his stats available so you can look at it as well. I wanted to get this up here. I should have had that prepared. But I mean, 4 touchdowns in a year where he only had 33 receptions. I'd expect those receptions to double in an offense like Denver, so could probably get 8 touchdowns in the red zone, which we were not getting a lot of tight end touchdowns this past season. Definitely could use a guy that's not just Courtland Sutton in the red zone, that's big and can catch. So I would love to bring in David Njoku in free agency rather than spending the second round pick necessarily on a tight end. But again, if Eli Stowers is available, I think you have to go Eli Stowers. And if you can't get Eli Stowers and David Njoku is still available, I think then you go and get David Njoku. But before we wrap this one up today, the Denver Nuggets are going to be taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder, and a ton of Thunder players are out today, so I'd like to go over my prize picks of the day here. My picks here include Aaron Gordon having more than 21.5 points, rebounds, assists, Cam Johnson having more than 17.5 points and assists, and Jared McCain having more than 20 points. Now, I don't love betting for Thunder players, however, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander isn't playing amongst a ton of other starters for the Thunder. I'm guessing they're resting their guys because there's only 2 games left in the season this year, so make sure to get in on the action by clicking the link in the description. Again, it helps us out a ton. Use code DIGEST and make sure you use that link in the description or the pinned comment in this one. But I love the Cam Johnson pick here. He's been rolling lately for the Nuggets. And then Aaron Gordon, 21 points, rebounds, and assists, or 21.5. Oh my goodness, he could score 22 points alone. And then you're giving me rebounds and assists, which I'm sure he'll combine for about 7 to 8 of those, so he really only needs like 15 points. I think Aaron Gordon, Cam Johnson, and Jared McCain. I like to pick more when I do a more or less with prize picks, because I like to be positive here. But again, wrapping this up here, I really, really, really want Markel Bell, and I think I'll make that very apparent in all the upcoming videos that Markel Bell is the guy I want very desperately in the 4th round. I know it's an offensive lineman, so it's kind of boring. It's not a running back, it's not a receiver, it's not a tight end, it's not even a cornerback, it's not even an edge rusher. It's an offensive tackle that's just for depth. I really would like to get him. And one more player that I'd really like to get that I'm going to mention in basically every video is Uwer Bernard. Never played a down of football in his life. He's in the international program for football, International Pathways program, but when you rank his combine stats with other defensive tackles, he ranks number 1 since like 2003. Okay, this guy's a freak athlete. We need to draft him as well. I think this entire draft needs to be focused on taking athletes, taking prospects, not trying to go for guys that can be day one starters, because the roster's set. The roster's ready for a Super Bowl. Let's develop some crazy athletes that can play on special teams maybe next season and quickly develop, or long-term develop, to be future starters in this league for the Denver Broncos as these guys get older, like a Garrett Bowles, Mike McGlinchey, Zach Allen getting older, Jonathan Cooper getting older. You'll need replacements eventually, but not this year, not next year, and probably not even the year after that. So getting a raw athlete is a great example of, or a raw talent can take 3 years to develop. So I think it makes a lot of sense for the Broncos to shoot for guys that are great athletes already, that just need to be coached up and more practice on the field. So that's all I have for today. So make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're not already, just to not miss out on any Denver Broncos news. And I'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments about the Broncos potentially getting a tight end or an offensive lineman in the second round. Let me know what you want the Broncos to do in the draft. Who should they go get? I love to read the comments. So thank you guys so much. And until next time, y'all, Broncos country, let's ride.